أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Lesson number 155. We'll begin from ayah number 92. So we were studying about Dhul Qarnayn. Who was Dhul Qarnayn? A just ruler. What else? He was a sincere worshipper. This is why he is mentioned in the Quran. But why was he given this title? He is called Dhul Qarnayn because he ruled over the Persian as well as the Roman Empire. Why else was he given this title? He reached the western regions as well as the eastern regions in his conquest. So he had the western regions as well as the eastern ones under his empire, in his rule. This is why he is known as Dhul Qarnayn. Why else is he called Dhul Qarnayn? Because he wore a crown that had 2 horns in it. And because he was a possessor of great might, great power, great authority. And what is mentioned about him in these ayat? One characteristic that is mentioned over and over again. That he made full use of all of the resources. What was the benefit of that? He used his resources completely to the maximum. What was the advantage of that? He achieved so much. He accomplished so much. All the way from the east to the west. When he summa atba'a sababa. And also another reason as to why he was able to accomplish so much. What was another reason? It's in the meaning of summa atba'a sababa. He never stopped. He kept on going. He did one thing and he followed it up by another work. He accomplished one task, one conquest, one journey, followed by another one. He never stopped. And over here we see again that a third expedition is mentioned. That first of all, he went to the western regions, then from there he went to the eastern regions, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ثُمَّ أَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. He traveled, again, he used his resources, he went on another expedition, حَتَّى until إِذَا بَلَغَ, until when he reached. What did he reach? بَيْنَ, between, meaning the space, the gap between, السَّدَّيْنِ, the 2 mountains. The word as-saddain is a dual of sad. And sad is basically a barrier between 2 things. However, this word is also used for mountains. Why? Because mountains also become barriers. Isn't it so? They become huge barriers. They prevent sometimes sunlight. They make it difficult for a person to go from one place to the other. Which is why sometimes if you're traveling by road, it takes a lot of time to cross over mountains. Why? Because mountains are like barriers. So sad is a barrier. But in particular, the word sad is used for a huge mountain. Because the bigger the mountain, the greater obstacle, the greater hurdle, the greater barrier it becomes. And some have said that sad also applies to mountain ranges. So he reached between 2 mountains, or 2 mountain ranges. So he reached the pass between the 2. And as he reached the pass between the 2 mountains, wajada, he found, min dunihima, beside them 2. Beside these 2 mountains, or beside these 2 mountain ranges, he found qawman, a people. There was another people who lived over there. So we see that Dhul Qarnayn came across so many different people, so many different nations, so many different civilizations in his travels, in his conquests. He reached the west, he reached the east, and now he's reached another place. But these people whom he found by these 2 mountain ranges, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَا يَكَادُونَ. They were not able to, they were not even near. Who? These people, this qawm, they were not even near يَفْقَهُونَ. They understand قَوْلًا, a word. Yakaduna is from kaf waw dal. Kada, yakadu, which is to be at the verge of doing something. To be about to do something. So la yakaduna, they were nowhere near. They were not even close to. They could barely, they could hardly yafqahuna qawla, they could hardly understand a word. What does it show? That they spoke a completely different language. There was a complete language barrier between Dhul Qarnayn and these people. They could not explain themselves to Dhul Qarnayn, and Dhul Qarnayn could not understand what they were saying either. So لا يكادون يفقهون قولا. Doesn't it happen sometimes? You come across some person and they speak a completely different language, you don't even know how to communicate with them. And sometimes it's possible that you use sign language, but they interpret differently. Every culture, they have different ways of communicating even through sign language. I remember somebody was once saying that they went somewhere and the people, in order to say no, they would nod their heads. And in order to say yes, they would shake their heads. So completely opposite. So these people, لا يكادون يفقهون قولا. And one reason as to why these people were not able to understand any word, or they were not able to explain themselves at all, could be because they were completely cut off from the rest of the world. Again, what does it show to us? That he reached such places where no one else had reached. He reached such areas, such people, he met such civilizations which were undiscovered before, which were unknown before, completely unknown to people. لا يكادون يفقهون قولا. But we see that Dhul Qarnayn, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given him many resources. He was extremely powerful, he was very mighty, he had been blessed with many blessings. And he was also determined to overcome every hurdle, wasn't he? He went all the way to the west, he went all the way to the east. And then he didn't stop over there. So he was very determined to overcome any kind of hurdle, any kind of difficulty. So he somehow managed to communicate with these people as well. It's possible that he had some expert translators or people with very good language ability, communication ability. Allahu A'lam, somehow he managed to communicate with them. So qalu, they said. Who said? Those people, these people whom he found by these mountains. They said, Ya Dhul Qarnayn, O Dhul Qarnayn, Inna Ya'juj wa Ma'juj. Indeed, Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Ya'juj and Ma'juj, they are two tribes. Ya'juj is the name of one tribe and Ma'juj is the name of the other tribe. And these two tribes, remember, they are human. They are from the descendants of Adam alayhi salam. Because some people say Ya'juj and Ma'juj are perhaps not human beings. They will be some kind of virus, some kind of weird kind of creation. No, they are human beings, as obvious from this ayah and also from various ahadith that we find in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. But remember that Ya'juj and Ma'juj, they're extremely powerful and they're numerous in their number, to the point that the ratio of Ya'juj and Ma'juj to the rest of human beings is 999 to 1. Just imagine. Where there are 999 people from Ya'juj and Ma'juj, there is one other human being. And remember that they are human beings, they are from the descendants of Adam alayhi salam. But they're very powerful and they're very mufsid. They create a lot of fasad, invading tribes. Now a person may wonder, where are they? Where are they? As we will learn from the story, that Ya'juj and Ma'juj, they were, you can say, barred by Dhul Qarnayn, and he made a barrier, because of which the Ya'juj and Ma'juj are not able to cross that barrier, which is why they're not mingled with the rest of the people. And for us this might seem a bit strange, because, with today's discovery and advancement and travel and technology, we may feel that we have discovered every part of the earth. So, how is it possible that these people that are supposed to be 999 times more than the rest of the human beings, they are unknown to us? We don't know where they are? It's quite possible. It's quite possible. Why? Because وَأَرْضُ اللَّهِ وَاسِعَةٌ. This earth is huge. And there are many, many parts in this earth that human beings have still not found, have still not discovered. As I mentioned to you, that remember in South America, recently, they discovered some tribes that were completely cut off from the rest of the society. People had no idea that they existed over there. Till today, every other day, scientists discover new and new types of species. And remember that this place where Ya'juj and Ma'juj are, this is a mountainous area. And some have said that this area is towards Bukhara. And remember that if you go towards Afghanistan and beyond, all of these areas are covered in mountains, huge mountains. And it's impossible to find people over there. Isn't it so? It's impossible to search, it's impossible to find, because of the mountains and the climate of that area, and it's so difficult to travel through such areas. So Allahu A'lam where exactly these people are, but we believe in what Allah has told us. We believe in that. We might not be able to fully comprehend it, we might not be able to discover it today. However, when Allah has said, what is our reaction? Sami'na wa ata'na. We believe, we obey. We believe in whatever Allah and His Messenger have informed us of. So these people, they said to Zulqarnain that, O Zulqarnain, these people, Ya'juj and Ma'juj, they are mufsiduna fil ard. They are ones who create a lot of fasad in the land. That every time they come from their area, they come across us, they create so much fasad. And remember, fasad fil ard is of various types. Any action that leads to harm and destruction and loss. Whether it is through murder, or it is through theft, or it is through destroying lands and crops and buildings, any kind of fasad. So these Ya'juj and Ma'juj, they're mufsiduna fil ard. As I mentioned to you, they're powerful and raiding tribes. So these people requested Zulqarnain that فَهَلْ نَجْعَلُ, so shall we assign laka for you kharjan, an expenditure. Kharj is from the root letters kharajim, and kharj is literally kharaja is to leave, to go. And the word kharj applies to expenditure. Why? Because when you're constructing something, when you're buying something, you have to spend money. And the money goes. It leaves your account. It leaves your wallet. Sometimes you may have noticed that if you're getting some renovations done, if you're fixing a part of the house, one expense after the other, one bill after the other. So the money just goes. So kharj is what? Expenditure. And kharj is also used for a tax. So shall we assign for you, meaning shall we collect for you, O Zulqarnain, some expenditure, some tax, ala upon an taj'ala, that you make baynana wa baynahum, between us and between them, meaning between the Ya'juj and Ma'juj, saddan, a barrier. So in other words, they're requesting Zulqarnain that we will pay you, we will give you the money. But you somehow make some barrier between us and between these Ya'juj and Ma'juj. So that Ya'juj and Ma'juj cannot come and create fasad in our lands. Because we are tired of them. We have had enough. We have suffered a lot. So please make a barrier between us and them that will enable them from coming towards us and harming us. Notice the word sad is used again over here. Earlier it was used for mountain, and over here it's used for a barrier. Now the reason why they offered the kharaj is because they did not want their request to be turned down. It wasn't that Zulqarnain could not afford. He wanted them to pay him. No. It's just that they did not want that their request should be turned down. They were desperate for this help because they had had enough of Ya'juj and Ma'juj. And as I mentioned to you that Ya'juj and Ma'juj, they are human beings. And one more thing, that their numbers are many more than the rest of the human beings. There is a hadith that is well known. It is reported in Bukhari and Muslim, in which we learn that on the Day of Judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say to Adam alayhi salam, O Adam, he will reply, Labbaik wa sa'daik wal khayru fi yadaik. That, O Allah, at your service, here I am, and all good is in your hand. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say to Adam, send forth those who are destined to hell. From your children, on the Day of Judgment, send forth from your children all those who are to go to hellfire. So Adam a.s. will ask, who are those destined for hell? Meaning, how many are there? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reply, out of every 1,999 to hell, and 1 to paradise. So when the Sahaba heard this, they said, O Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which of us would be that one man? How is it possible? Who amongst us would be that one man out of 1,000 who will go to Jannah? So the Prophet ﷺ responded that, and among you are 2 nations. That among you, O people, there are 2 nations who are never added to a thing, but they overwhelm it. 2 nations are among you, O human beings, who, whenever they are added to something, what happens? They overwhelm it. And who are they? Ya'juj and Ma'juj. And another narration, he said, be glad, For indeed from you is going to be the one man who is going to Jannah, and from the Ya'juj and Ma'juj is going to be the rest of them who are going to go to hellfire. So according to that hadith, that shows to us the great numbers of Ya'juj and Ma'juj. How many there are. How many more times. And also it shows to us that they are indeed human beings. They are from the descendants of Adam alayhi salam. As obvious from this ayah as well. So what was the response of Dhul Qarnayn when the people made this request to him? Qala, he said, Ma makkanni, that which my Lord has established me with, fihi, in it. Makkanni, as you know, that the authority, the establishment, the power, the position, all that Allah has given me, Rabbi, my Lord has given me, it is khayrun, it is much better. Much better than what? Than what you could offer me. You could offer me just a little bit of tax, just a little bit of wage, a little bit of expenditure. But what Allah has given me is much better for me. In other words, I do not need your tax. You don't need to pay anything to me. But what I do want from you is that you have to work with me. Do you understand? You have to work with me. You see very good leadership qualities in Dhul Qarnayn. Many times what happens? People say, just give me the money, I'll do the work myself, alone. Just don't come near me, I'll do the work myself. Such a person is not successful. A person who cannot make others work. Who is successful? Who is a successful leader? Who can put others to work as well. Who can make them stand on their feet. Who will put them to work. Like for example, many times, mothers, they'll be with their children. They'll wait for the children to go to sleep, and then they will go and clean the whole house. Then they will go fold the laundry, then they will go put the dishes away, etc., etc. And this way what happens? Children, they never learn to clean up themselves. Isn't it? They never learn that they should tidy up after themselves. Never. Now remember, it is extremely difficult to make the children clean up themselves, isn't it? You have to tell them again and again. Sometimes they don't do the work properly. You tell them to put the clothes away, you'll tell them to put the toys away, they won't put them properly. Like, might as well do it myself because I have to do twice anyway. But the fact is that if you don't go through that effort, will they learn? They will not learn. It's much easier to do it yourself. But this is being very selfish. This is not good for the children. Similarly, this principle can be applied anywhere. Whether a person is a teacher or a boss or a head or, some people are working under him. In any area, in any kind of work, successful leader is he who makes people work. We see that Dhul Qarnayn, he used all of his resources completely, fully. And this is a part of resources, manpower, that you make them work as well. It doesn't mean that you put them to extremely hard and laborious work, but the fact is that whatever work has to be done, they should be able to do it themselves. So he said, you have to work with me. And what is that? فَأَعِينُونِي. So you all assist me. A'inu from the root letters, Ain, Waw, Noon, Aun. And Aun is help. So all of you help me, بِقُوَّةٍ, with strength. Remember that quwwah, strength, power is of various types. It includes physical power, the badani power, manpower. It includes financial power as well. So فَأَعِينُونِي بِقُوَّةٍ, assist me with quwwah, meaning with your workforce. I want your manpower. I want your people. أَجْعَلْ, I will make بَيْنَكُمْ, between you, وَبَيْنَهُمْ, and between them, meaning the Ya'juj and Ma'juj, رَدْمًا, a dam. Notice, they asked for sad. And what does Dhul Qarnayn say? I will make for you a radm. Now what is a radm? Radm is from the root letters Ra, Dal, Mim. And radm is a barrier. It is also used for a very thick wall. And primarily the verb radima means to seal holes. To seal holes, to plug them with rocks, etc. Like for example, if you see a wall, and there are gaps, there are holes, One is that you leave those gaps, you leave those holes as they are. But the other is that you seal all of them. When you seal them all, what's going to happen? The wall, the barrier, is going to become firm and strong. So a radm is a very thick wall that is completely consolidated. There are no empty gaps in it. There are no cracks in it. Anything like that in it. It's very strong, it's very thick, and it's well consolidated. So أَجْعَلْ بَيْنَكُمْ وَبَيْنَهُمْ رَدْمًا, I will make between you and them a fortifying barrier, a fortifying wall. So how are you supposed to help me? Atuni, bring to me, zubara, sheets of what? Al-hadid, iron. Bring me sheets of iron. The word zubar is the plural of the word zubra. And zubra is a huge block or a piece of iron. A huge block or a piece of iron. So bring me zubar al-hadid, sheets of iron. Huge pieces of iron. Notice he doesn't say bricks that are made of clay or that are made of some other material. But what does he say? Sheets of iron. Because iron is much stronger than what? Than other materials. So, آتوني زبر الحديد. حتى until, إذا when, ساوى, he leveled. ساوى from the root letters? Sin wawiyah. Until when he leveled, he made equal بين الصدفين, between the two mountain walls. الصدفين is a dual of صدف. And صدف is the bend or the side of something. It also applies to an oyster, a shell. Why? Because it bends. It's not straight. Isn't it so? It's not a block. But the side is bent. It's curved. So sadaf is also used for the side of a mountain. The side wall of a mountain. For cliff. So, إِذَا سَاوَى بَيْنَ صَدَفَيْنِ, he leveled between the two sides of the mountains. Remember, these are two mountain ranges or two mountains. Okay, this is where he reached. So imagine the empty space, the gap, the passage between the mountains. What does he do? He fills them up with sheets of iron, with huge blocks of iron. You can imagine how massive the structure would be. That he filled that entire gap until the height of this structure that he was making of sheets of iron, it leveled with the peaks of the mountains. Can you imagine? It's like making another mountain almost. So you have two mountains, the gap between them, he fills them up with iron sheets. Then when the entire space was filled up, qala, he said, unfukhu, blow. Unfukhu from the root letters, nun fa kha, nafakha, which is to blow. So blow, meaning burn the iron sheets, or light fire, hatta until, إِذَا جَعَلَهُ نَارًا, until when he made it into fire. When he made the sheets of iron, the blocks of iron into fire. What does it mean by that? That they just looked like fire. He burnt them so that in their color they turned red. In their heat they were like fire. So in other words, they had completely melted. What was the point of melting them? What was the point of burning them? So that they would melt together and they would get joined together. Because this was blocks of iron, sheets of iron. When he burnt them all, it became into one mass, one solid structure. All of the pieces were connected with one another. You couldn't just remove one and go through. Qala, he said. Now when the iron sheets, they were completely burnt, they were like fire. Qala, he said, Atuni, you give me. Ufrigh, I will pour. Ufrigh from the root letters, faraghain. Faragha. Ifragh is to pour out. So I will pour out alayhi, upon it, meaning upon this wall of iron that has been burnt. I will pour on it qitran, molten copper. Qitr is used for molten brass or molten copper or some kind of molten metal. So you can imagine sheets of iron that have been burnt, that are consolidated, and now on top of that he pours molten copper. So what kind of a structure is it once it will cool down? a very solid and firm structure. Can you dig through it? No. Can you try to jump over it? No. Can you try to climb it? No. It's huge, it's massive, and it's extremely strong. Normally, if you think of it, walls are made of bricks and cement, maybe wood, different materials. And it's always possible to dig a hole through them, or somehow shake that wall, or destroy that wall, or break it, or do something to it in order to cross it. However, this wall is extremely strong, that it's made of iron and on top molten copper has been poured.